Deploying in the cloud is different. Let's take a look at what else you need to know about deploying in the cloud. First off, mapping of your business intent to standard Oracle Cloud Application processes and features is an important element of a cloud deployment. We'll talk about what we mean by that in a moment, because it sounds pretty obvious, but there is a very important nuance here that you do need to be well aware of, and your users and your stakeholders need to be well aware of as well. Another point is the planning for updates. Remember that updates are coming at you on a quarterly basis in a month schedule based on the cohort that you belong to. You also need to consider an environment management plan. So even though you're not going to be managing the environments yourself, you do need to consider how you're going to deal with your test environments. Do you have any additional test or staging environments and things like that? You'll also, as part of this process, need to make sure that your IT staff fully understands and appreciates their adjustment in their roles and some of the tasks that they will have in a cloud environment as opposed to a legacy on-premise type of environment. So, for example, mapping your business intent to product functionality really is all about configuring, not customizing. Doing away with that urge to just pick up a coding sheet, pick up a programmer, and throw them as a customer request. You want to configure. You want to take advantage of all of the features and capabilities and the tailorability of the system, as opposed to just building something yourself. So you do need to consider having a user adoption lead, someone responsible for change management in your organization, and getting people to start thinking in terms of kind of stepping away from the old approach with legacy systems. You also want to consider very seriously hiring not just an experienced implementation partner, but one who's qualified and preferably certified. And in the note below the slide, there is a badge verification site where you can actually confirm that particular consultants have been certified by Oracle itself. Planning for updates is a very significant change in approach. Unlike the old model of delivering large-scale upgrades, maybe once a year or maybe even skipping them and installing them every 2 or 3 years and spending an enormous amount of time and effort and, of course, money on implementing the new release. In the cloud, we use quarterly updates based on the cohort that you belong to, but this is, again, on a quarterly basis. So these quarterly updates will contain a smaller number of new features and functionality. They're more manageable. And by the way, you can change the cohort that you are assigned to initially by logging a service request, but do allow for sufficient lead time for that to occur. And there are more details in the notes below this slide on the update policies and frequently asked questions on updates and so on. But note that updates are coming at you on a quarterly basis. They are scheduled, predictable, and they cannot be skipped or rescheduled. So you do need to factor them into your business, in other words, your project plans for maintaining your system current. There may also be a maintenance pack that comes on a quarterly basis that would include potentially some monthly updates, bug fixes, and so on that might have occurred and been released. So if you're not in a hurry for a certain fix, you can wait till the quarterly update and just have that maintenance pack, that monthly maintenance pack, automatically bundled with your quarterly update. Note also that some new features are optional. And in other words, an opt-in is required. So in order to use a particular new feature, you may need to opt into it, essentially checking a box in the configuration, letting the system know that these features need to be enabled and visible on screen. And if it is an opt-in, feature, then you get to decide if and when you wish to activate that new feature and make it available to your user community. You also need to consider your environment management plan. In other words, you have a production environment and you may have multiple test or staging environments, non-production environments that need to be considered and perhaps refreshed from time to time from the production, from the live environment. So you need to understand that collection of instances of environments and or pods and how you're going to manage all of that. Once your initial order is complete, you will receive several environments, at least your production environment, which will be scaled and sized to your number of users and geographic distribution of them and so on. And you will receive a test environment, which is typically a smaller one because of the fewer number of users that will be working in it. And that test environment can be refreshed based on a request of Oracle from time to time. So understanding the mechanics of all of this is something else that you will need to give some thought to over time. And by the way, you may have more than one test or non-production environment as well. So all of this boils down to a different role, an adjustment to the role of your information technology, your IT staff. In the cloud service environment, your IT department, or if you have an application managed services provider, they will no longer be managing the infrastructure of your applications. Oracle will be doing that as part of the service contract that you've subscribed to. But your IT department or your managed service provider will continue to support you in all other classic IT functionalities, such as reporting and auditing and interfaces and security and approvals and managing and opening, service requests with Oracle support, requesting environment refreshes to, say, update your test or your training environment with production data, and so on.